Welcome to Cues and Views, first on the web for collecting English billiard cues. Welcome to Cues and Views, special edition cue Splices. As you know, usually I talk about old cues, such as Burroughs and Watts, Peridon, Riley's, and some of the more obscure, small provincial makers and manufacturers and retailers, to get more and more of you interested in collecting old cues, both billiards and snooker cues. However, I do have an interest in modern cues, and cues that have been owned, albeit sometimes temporarily, by professional players. Today I'd like to look at, and I'd like you to see something that I find incredibly interesting, which is a cue that I own in action in the hands of a top class snooker professional. Now, you already know that Dominic Dale is a close friend of myself and Cues and Views, the sort of web series and Facebook page and everything that we do to promote the collection of old cues. You already know that. What you may not be as familiar with is the fact that he and I have exchanged cues over the years, and he's sourced and found cues for myself, and I've added them to the collection, and both old and new, and we've got this shared hobby. Well, on a more serious note, obviously he makes his living with a cue in professional competition. And what I'd like you to do is watch this video clip that is coming up, this sequence that is coming up next, which is a break that Dominic made of 142. I'm sorry to spoil the ending. He does make the break of 142. I consider it to be one of the better breaks I've ever seen him make, and he once made 4 centuries against me in 6 frames in practice, much to my disappointment in one way. He was giving me a ridiculous amount of start, and he beat me convincingly, let's put it that way. And he had 4 centuries in 6 frames, not with the cue that's on the table in front of me, but with the cue that he was using at the time. But in the video that you're going to see now, Dominic uses this cue, the cue that's on the table in front of me, which I'll show you in more detail after you enjoyed watching this magnificent break.
We've got some good matches coming up. There's great opportunities for people here at the moment in the game. A lot of them are having a bit of a grumble about travelling around. Of course, they don't have to do it, but I understand that it's tiring and expensive if you're not winning. Big roar gone up. I don't know what's happened. Something's happened on one of the outside tables. I'd like to find out. I don't know if it was David John 2, Jamie Cope 2, but that is the score in that match. Camera's a bit wobbly there, isn't it? Anyway, Dominic is in with a good chance here as well. tell you that Rob Milkins has lost to Brian Cheney. That is a big shock for me. The Milkman's out.
35.
I haven't seen Brian Cheney play, I have to be perfectly honest. Good to think that Maltese snooker would have some success. I saw Tony Drago here earlier. He has played in this event. Lost a bit of weight actually. Good to see. Looking well. Didn't get a chance to speak to him. But good to see him. And Brian Cheney, who, well, an amateur player who's come through to get here.
32.
There were some extraordinary players. I came in yesterday morning to watch some of the qualifiers. There were some good players and some that were likely to take your eye out. But the ones that got through, no doubt, are good. That's his fourth win, Brian Cheney. Beat Michael Wilde, Marcus Fisher, who I don't know, Declan Brennan. Now the Milkman, Rob Milkins. So he's through to play Ben Williston later. Interesting. Good to see new faces doing well.
31.
Meanwhile, Dominic is still on reds and blacks here. Didn't want to say too much, but he certainly is on reds and blacks. And those 8 points, don't be confused by that, because as you remember, it was 2 4-point penalties. No reds were potted. I mean, if we got to see the Spaceman make a 147, that would cap everything off, wouldn't it?
48.
Almost a question of our lives would be complete.
49.
Anyway, if you are watching right now, drop me a tweet. Neil Folds is my name. Foldsy147. Fouldsy 147. Meanwhile, I was going to say the Spaceman's still going, but I think he'll have to play up for a lower value colour. Looks okay though. Always been a good ball striker, as Dominic.
Sixty-two. Nine. Seventy.
Well done, he had the ground away from the stop, which makes that shot particularly easier. But he still played it very nicely indeed. And he's still on for a mammoth break. Get 1-4-2 if he takes reds and blacks, which may not happen, but it's still a good, decent performance.
83. 91.
Much cheering on other tables. It's a very fine break from Dominic. He had very good control. He might as well play on the black here as well, I think. Nice break so far, 132. That's the century. 1-3-2 from Paul Davidson against Reece Clark. His earlier today is the highest. And we had a couple of other centuries, one from Jack Jones, one from Gary Wilson. There haven't been many. But this has been a beautiful performance.
107.
Well, he's got the chance to play the shot that he played earlier here with the brown away from its spot if he wants to. Just bring the cue ball off the left-hand cushion, past the middle and on the baulk cushion, and that's perfect. That is absolutely perfect. What a great shot. This could be a sizable break here. 142 is on.
$120.
Went in. So we can make 142 here. This will be the highest. And he had reds and blacks early on. There was an outside chance of a 147, but that's a fine break. Dominic Dale, he'll be delighted. 142 to win the opening frame. What a tremendous start to his match against John Astley. He's won the opening frame.
Well done, Dominic. Very good break there. When I was first interested in cues, I used to think, well, the professional player uses, different timbers to the likes of you and me, and maybe different tips and different chalk and everything, and therefore that's how they get the control and what have you. And you sort of forget really that it's really down to the ability of the individual player to produce that kind of performance that you've just seen. Having said that, having a good ally, having a good addition to your right arm, having a good cue to use is good for your confidence. A cue that you like the look of, you like the feel of, the weight, the tip size, the dimensions of the balance, the timbers that have been used to make the cue, whether it's ash or maple. All these things can influence you as to whether you feel good when you get the cue out of your case. Now, that cue that Dominic used during that tournament, and for several other tournaments, including another big break that's actually viewable on YouTube, or was recently, against Jimmy White. I think it was a 132 or a 136, I can't honestly remember. Another really big break with this very cue that's on the table in front of me. So you're probably wondering, it's probably burning you up with curiosity to know what the cue is. It's a Maximus cue that Dominic made a specialist badge for. And it's very like, in his opinion, because he's retipped John Higgins' cue and handled John Higgins' cue, and the cue that John Higgins was using at that time which I think he's still using. And he said it's the spitting image, it's just another as John Higgins' cue. Now, so on the badge, sorry, it says the John Higgins Dominic Dale facsimile cue, which is a specialist badge that Dominic made up himself, or had made up. The cue is ash and ebony, 9.75mm tip, 18¼ ounces. I have a feeling it's 29mm the butt, but I couldn't swear to that. And it's a Maximus. It's single piece, as you can probably see, and as I said before, ash in the shaft, ebony in the butt. He's given it a refurbishment to keep it as clean as he possibly could, keep the smoothness just the way he wanted it, and so on, and fitted a tip to his liking. But other than that, it is exactly like it was when it originally came from Craftsman Cues. So the story behind the cue, I was with him and he was looking for a cue over there, and at the time he was looking for maple. So I thought I was safe. I thought I was safe to buy this cue for myself. I had a practice knock on the table there, and I enjoyed using the cue. I thought it really did feel about right for me. The specs were about right for me. So I remember saying to Dominic specifically, I said, Dom, have you finished in that area? Am I safe to have a look? And he said, oh, go ahead, Dave, go ahead. In his inimitable style. And so I did. And I found this cue, and I loved it. Immediately loved it. There was something about the way I felt comfortable using the cue. So consequently I bought it. About a week later or thereabouts, Dominic was still unsure, unsettled regarding his cue, and he decided that he'd come and see me again, which he did. And this time he had a look at this cue, which obviously was owned by me, and I'd used it for literally a week. I'm sure it was a week. And I'd used the cue for a week, and I was loving it. And he said, "What would I do? Would I be willing to part with it?" Now, as he makes his living using these things, and I'm a very average club player, it didn't take me long to decide that I ought to let him have it. I don't mean let him have it by hitting him over the head with it. I mean let him have it to take away and play with. So I did, and he played, and as you've seen, he was, I would say, quite successful with it. Now, again, he's always on the search for perfection, and something else came along, and he moved over to that cue, and he had promised to let me have the cue back. And he is a man of his word, and he did just that just before Christmas. I had the pleasure of his company again just before Christmas, and we got together, and he let me have the cue back, and so therefore you can see it here today. I've put one of those little sort of rubber stopper things in to protect the end, an end protector. The cue is here, as you've seen, it's hand spliced. In one manner of speaking, it's a very unremarkable cue to look at. It's got standard kind of chevrons on it, and the standard grain pattern as you would expect from this type of cue, but it plays extraordinarily well. So it's my cue now. Again, it's come back home. I'm going to keep it. It's a nice memento for the memories of my association with my friend Dominic. I'm glad to own it. It's not going anywhere. Every now and again I'll take it to the club and use it for what it was intended for, and I will enjoy it hopefully for many years to come. Keep a lookout for other videos from Cues and Views, and look out for Cue Splices, our shorter videos. Follow us on Facebook. The website is still there on the internet standard address, and I look forward to interacting with you soon. Bye bye.